Kaylin would do anything for you. She didn't deserve this. She did not deserve this.
Whatever you do, keep in touch with somebody in your family. Always call. Let somebody know that everything is all right. And be careful who your friends is and who you pick for your friends, and especially when you have little children. Whatever you do, keep in touch with your family. Let them know where you're at, how you's doing. Always do that.
March 15th, 2024, Charlotte, North Carolina. Detectives are standing outside apartment 405 on Orchard Trace Lane. They push the door open, it stops. A security chain, locked from the inside, blocks entry. Someone chained that door from the inside, but nobody was supposed to be home. They find another way in. The air conditioning is running at 62 degrees. Fans are going in multiple rooms. Burned down candles sit on surfaces throughout the apartment. Used air fresheners placed in every corner. Someone had worked very deliberately to control what this apartment smelled like and to control who could get inside. This was not a normal apartment, and the people who lived here had been reported missing for nearly 2 weeks. What detectives found inside that apartment that afternoon would trigger a manhunt stretching over 2,200 miles across the country. Welcome to the Crime Edition, where we go deeper than the headlines and stay with the cases that matter. Today, we're covering the case of Markayla Johnson, her 4-year-old daughter Miracle, and her 7-month-old son Messiah. If you are new here, subscribe now. We cover cases like this from the very beginning all the way to the verdict, and we never drop the story. Hit the like button and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. Now, let's get into it. Markayla Denise Johnson was 22 years old. She was born on May 14, 2001 in Summerton, South Carolina, a small, tight-knit town in Clarendon County, where her family had deep roots and where nearly everyone who knew her said the same thing. She was the kind of person who gave before you finished asking, generous, warm, trusting to a fault. She had 2 children. Her daughter, Miracle, had just turned 4 years old on January 15, 2024. Her son, Messiah, was 7 months old, born in June of 2023. Neither child had any biological connection to the man Markayla had recently moved in with. And by early 2024, all 3 of them were living 170 miles from the family who loved them most. Markayla communicated constantly. Daily FaceTime calls, long text messages, voice notes, social media posts. Her family knew what she was doing, what she was feeling, and where she was, almost every single day. That pattern of communication was not a habit, it was who she was, and it would become one of the most critical pieces of evidence in this entire case. The man Markayla moved in with was Benjamin Joseph Taylor. He was 34 years old at the time, living at 405 Orchard Trace Lane in Northeast Charlotte, and his background was not something that surfaced gradually. Public records showed Taylor had dozens of run-ins with law enforcement across nearly 2 decades, spanning multiple counties in North Carolina. In 2007, he was convicted of felony breaking and entering in Cabarrus County. By 2011, he picked up a conviction for assault on a law enforcement officer in Mecklenburg County. In 2016, another assault conviction followed. By 2018, he had added a conviction for possession of a firearm as a convicted felon in Forsyth County, along with multiple drug-related offenses. Beyond those convictions, court records also document charges of kidnapping, assault against women, and violations of domestic violence protective orders. Prosecutors would later describe him in open court as a tremendous danger to the public. In September 2023, Taylor was released on a $5,000 bond for a new firearm possession charge as a convicted felon, this time in Mecklenburg County. He was awaiting trial, he was free to move around, and that is when Markayla Johnson came into his life. They met online sometime in 2023. By fall of that year, Markayla made the decision to leave Myrtle Beach and move into Taylor's apartment in Charlotte. She brought both children with her. Her family had never met him, and according to those closest to her, she did not know about his record. The move changed everything immediately. The family that had been part of her daily life became people who needed to plan ahead just to see her. No more drop-ins, no proximity, just phone calls and text messages, and a growing distance that concerned the people who loved her most. Domestic violence advocate Joan Harris of Safe Passage explained the dynamic directly. She said, "If you get someone away from their entire support system, who are they leaning on? You." And that, she said, is exactly why isolation is one of the first tools an abuser reaches for. By November 3, 2023, just 2 months after Markayla arrived in Charlotte, her family made a decision. They drove to 405 Orchard Trace Lane and brought her and both children back to Myrtle Beach. Court documents noted that when they found her, she was in a concerning state and the children were in her care. Her family got her home, and for a short time, it appeared the situation had been corrected. But in the third week of January 2024, Markayla went back. She packed up what she had, took Miracle and Messiah, and returned to Benjamin Taylor's apartment in Charlotte. The last confirmed moment her family saw her in person was January 20, 2024, at the Orchard Trace apartment complex. Phone records would later confirm that her phone arrived back at the apartment on January 31, 2024. She walked through that door with her 2 children, and after that, the communication her family received was not coming from her. Text messages kept arriving from Markayla's phone throughout February 2024. On the surface, they were plausible, but to anyone who knew her, they were immediately off. The messages were short, flat, no emojis, no FaceTime calls, no voice notes. The woman who texted in full paragraphs and called her family multiple times a day was suddenly responding in a few words and nothing more. Every request to see the children came back with an excuse. The paternal grandmother who had Miracle and Messiah on most weekends had not seen either child since Markayla left Myrtle Beach at the end of January. Neighbors at the Orchard Trace complex told reporters they had seen Markayla and her babies there every single day. They said they had never heard an argument, never heard anything that caused concern. From the outside, nothing looked wrong. But inside that apartment, investigators would later establish something had already gone terribly wrong. And Benjamin Taylor was using Markayla's own phone to make sure no one found out. Investigators confirmed that Taylor had been sending those messages himself. He had studied how Markayla communicated, her tone, her patterns, the way she responded, and he replicated it carefully enough to hold her family off for weeks. Digital evidence recovered from his devices included a search history that investigators described as deeply concerning. Detectives later obtained a warrant directed at Apple to access the iCloud accounts connected to Markayla's devices, covering the period from January 31, 2024 to March 16, 2024. The warrant requested text messages, IP addresses, device location data, internet search history, photos, and videos. Investigators noted in that warrant that it is a recognized pattern for suspects in cases like this to use personal devices to research methods of disposing of evidence, cleaning a scene, and concealing odors. By February, a maintenance employee entered the apartment to take photographs before the lease expired. He noted nothing suspicious. Whoever was inside had managed that space carefully enough that a person physically walking through it saw nothing that raised concern. On March 2, 2024, Markayla's family drove back to Charlotte. They knocked on the door of 405 Orchard Trace Lane for hours. No movement, no sounds, no answer. The next day, March 3, 2024, they filed an official missing persons report with the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department. They told detectives they had not had genuine contact with Markayla or her children since January. That same afternoon, Markayla's phone was powered off in the area of the apartment. It never came back on again. On March 5th, CMPD officers accompanied family members to the apartment for a welfare check. A maintenance worker used a master key to open the front door, but the security chain engaged from the inside stopped it from opening more than a few inches. Officers called into the apartment. No response came. Without authority to force entry, they left. The very next day, March 6th, surveillance cameras at the complex recorded Benjamin Taylor leaving 405 Orchard Trace Lane. He had minimal belongings with him. He walked to a nearby stop and boarded a Greyhound bus heading west out of North Carolina. That same day, an apartment employee who conducted a separate check noted the complete absence of anything belonging to a child inside the unit. No food, no diapers, no clothing, no bedding, no toys. Nothing that indicated a 4-year-old and a 7-month-old had ever been there. Outside in the parking lot, Taylor's Chevy Camaro and his motorcycle sat untouched. Neither vehicle had moved since the three were last seen. On March 8th, CMPD issued a public alert with photographs of Markayla, Miracle, and Messiah, asking the community for leads. The 5-day gap between the March 3 missing persons report and that public alert on March 8th became a significant point of public scrutiny, a question that drew widespread criticism and has never been fully addressed. Between March 8th and March 14th, investigators fielded tips and tracked down leads. None of them led to the family. Detectives continued building probable cause: the surveillance footage of Taylor leaving the state, the absence of children's belongings, the maintenance employee's observations, the family's documented concerns about the messages, and a pattern pointing unmistakably toward foul play. On March 15, 2024, at 1:45 in the afternoon, Charlotte Mecklenburg detectives executed a search warrant at 405 Orchard Trace Lane. The air conditioning was set to 62 degrees. Multiple fans were running throughout the unit. Burned-down candles and used air fresheners were placed throughout the apartment. The security chain on the front door was still engaged from the inside, which explained why officers had not been able to enter 10 days earlier during the welfare check. Inside the bedroom closet, inside a large plastic storage container, investigators found the remains of Markayla Johnson. She was 22 years old. Miracle and Messiah were not in the apartment. The following morning, March 16th, detectives executed a second search warrant, this time for Taylor's Chevy Camaro, which had been towed from the complex and held as evidence. Inside the vehicle, investigators located Taylor's North Carolina ID and personal paperwork, confirming him as the operator of that car. When they opened the trunk, they found gym bags. Inside those bags were the remains of 4-year-old Miracle Johnson and 7-month-old Messiah Johnson. The Mecklenburg County Medical Examiner's Office was called to both scenes. Autopsies later confirmed that all 3 victims died between late January and early February 2024. The cause of death for all 3 was fentanyl. 7-month-old Messiah also had cocaine in his system, which was ruled a contributing factor in his death. Melatonin and diphenhydramine, commonly known as Benadryl, were also found in Messiah's system, and the medical examiner noted those substances may have contributed as well. Naloxone, a drug used to reverse opioid overdose, was detected in Markayla's system. Dr. James Pearl, a clinical professor of medicine at the University of California, Irvine, stated publicly that given the circumstances of this case, it was nearly impossible that the substance was not administered deliberately. Former FBI Assistant Director Chris Swecker, an attorney in Charlotte with no connection to the case, spoke to the nature of investigations like this one. He described the process as piecing together a puzzle. Investigators had enough pieces to secure a warrant, but forensic testing, toxicology, and digital analysis would continue running in the background for weeks and months ahead. On the same evening Markayla was found, March 15, Charlotte detectives made contact with the Imperial County Sheriff's Office and the FBI, providing intelligence on where Benjamin Taylor had likely gone. Taylor had traveled over 2,200 miles west to a place called Slab City, an off-grid, unincorporated encampment in Imperial County, California, near the U.S.-Mexico border, in the middle of the Sonoran Desert. Slab City operates on an unspoken code. No addresses, no records, no questions asked about who you are or why you came. It is the kind of place people travel to specifically because they do not want to be found. On March 16, 2024, a coordinated operation was launched. The Imperial County Sheriff's North County Patrol, the Border Crime Suppression Team, and FBI agents moved through the encampment, quietly narrowing down Taylor's exact location. Just before 6 in the evening, a tip came in from a member of a local community group who had spotted someone matching Taylor's description. The tip placed him at a campsite near a landmark called the Second Guard Shack, approximately 200 yards north of Salvation Mountain on Beale Road. Taylor was found living in a blue tent. When he did not immediately comply with commands, deputies deployed smoke canisters to make staying inside no longer an option. He came out and was taken into custody. Inside the tent, deputies found prescription bottles that did not belong to him, a cell phone, keys, and luggage that matched what surveillance footage had captured him carrying when he left Charlotte 10 days earlier. At 10:19 in the evening on March 16, 2024, Benjamin Taylor was formally processed into the Imperial County Jail. On March 18th, Charlotte Mecklenburg Police charged Benjamin Joseph Taylor with 3 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of concealment of death. Taylor waived his extradition rights in California and was transported back to North Carolina by U.S. Marshals. On April 5, 2024, he arrived at Mecklenburg County Detention Center at 5:30 in the afternoon. 3 days later, on April 8th, Taylor appeared before a judge for his first court hearing since extradition. The state presented his record: 2 decades, multiple counties, documented assaults specifically against women, kidnapping charges, firearm convictions, drug offenses. The judge was direct. Taylor was, in the court's words, a tremendous danger to the public. Bond was denied. CMPD Chief Johnny Jennings stood before cameras with members of Markayla's family standing behind him. He confirmed the discovery of all 3 victims and called the case one of the most difficult of his tenure. When a reporter asked whether Taylor may have harmed the children to eliminate witnesses, Chief Jennings responded carefully. He said, "Well, I'm not sure how much a 7-month-old can be a witness, but I don't want to speculate about the reasoning behind any of these murders." Markayla's grandmother, Ramona Renee Johnson, identified herself by name at that press conference and spoke openly. She said she missed her baby, she missed her grandchildren. She said Markayla was a good person, someone who would do anything for anyone, and that she did not deserve what happened to her. Markayla's sister, Tabby Holliday, who served as the family's primary spokesperson throughout the legal process, made her position known at the bond hearing. She said, "He needs to know that she was loved, and so were her kids." On April 6, 2024, hundreds of people gathered at Scotts Branch High School in Summerton, South Carolina, the school Markayla had attended, for the homegoing service. The gymnasium was filled with pink flowers, photographs, and signs. Markayla, Miracle, and Messiah were laid to rest together. Her great-aunt, Carol Tyndall, attended and spoke publicly. She urged any woman in a dangerous relationship to speak up, reach out, and stay connected to family. She said, "Let somebody know where you are and how you are doing. Always do that." In August 2024, a Charlotte judge announced that prosecutors would not seek the death penalty. If convicted at trial, Benjamin Taylor would face life in prison without the possibility of parole. On June 7, 2024, Shempty obtained a search warrant directed at Apple for Markayla's iCloud accounts, covering the period from January 31 to March 16, 2024, to retrieve messages, location data, device history, and media files as part of the ongoing digital investigation. Then, on June 12, 2025, more than a year after his arrest, Benjamin Taylor appeared before Judge Carla Archie in a Mecklenburg County courtroom for formal arraignment. The charges had expanded. He now faced 7 counts, 3 counts of first-degree murder, 3 counts of concealment of an unnatural death, and 1 count of habitual felon status under North Carolina law. That habitual felon designation, prosecutors argued, applied without question given his record spanning nearly 2 decades. Prosecutors extended a plea offer. If Taylor pleaded guilty to 2 counts of second-degree murder and 1 count of concealment, he would face between 456 and 560 months in prison, roughly 38 to 47 years. Benjamin Taylor turned it down. His defense entered not guilty pleas on all 7 counts and denied his habitual felon status. Notably, not a single member of Markayla's family was present in that courtroom on the day Taylor rejected the deal. The trial is now heading forward. The next court date was tentatively set for December 31, 2025. If a jury convicts him on the murder charges, Benjamin Taylor will spend the rest of his life in prison. No parole, no early release, no possibility of walking free. This case is about more than what happened inside that apartment on Orchard Trace Lane. It is about what happens when someone is slowly cut off from every person who could protect them. It is about warning signs that were visible, a record that was public, a pattern that was documented, and the gap between what was knowable and what was known. Joan Harris of Safe Passage put it plainly. She said, "Look these people up. The public index is available. You can see if a person has had charges in the past." Markayla Johnson deserved better. So did Miracle. So did Messiah. The trial is coming, and when it does, the Crime Edition will be here with every update. If this case touched you, subscribe now so you do not miss what comes next. Hit the like button and tell us in the comments, do you think he should have taken that plea deal? We read every single comment, and we will see you in the next one.